My name is Naomi Voss, 32 years old. On Tuesday, the kitchen smelled like garlic and browned butter, and the only odd thing was how quiet Ethan was. He usually narrated his day like a podcast: who misused, brand awareness, why Slack should be illegal. But that night, he scrolled in silence at my counter, face lit by a screen I wasn't invited into. You good? I asked, stirring pasta. Yeah, he said, too light. Just interesting day. What happened? He set his phone down with ceremony. I quit. I stopped the spoon midair. Quit? Like 2 weeks' notice quit? No, he said, brightening, truly brightening. Like walked out at lunch and told them I was done. For a beat, my brain tried to slot this into the kind of emergency you call HR about. Did something happen? I asked, pulse picking up. Harassment? A blow-up? No, nothing like that. He leaned back, satisfied. It wasn't fulfilling me. I was miserable every day. Life's too short to grind your soul into the carpet. I breathed out slowly. Okay, so what's your plan? I kept my voice gentle. Do you have something lined up? That's what I wanted to talk to you about, he said, smiling like he'd just pitched a dream. Red flags rustled in the vent above the stove. I'm going to take some time to figure out what I really want to do, he continued. Explore options, online courses, find my passion. For how long? I asked. As long as it takes. A month? 6? I don't want to rush it. He watched me, then added, You get it. You actually love your job. I plated pasta and set one bowl in front of him, searching his face for any sign of a parachute. You've got savings to cover your expenses while you do that? He twirled spaghetti, casual as weather. So that's the thing. Rent is $1,600, then car payment, insurance, phone, groceries. It's about $2,800 a month, maybe $3,000 realistic. I nodded. Then you need a bridge job, anything that buys you runway while you figure it out. He lifted a hand, stopping me. Actually, I was thinking you could help. He said it as if I'd already agreed. Help you how? Cover my expenses for a bit. He reached for my hand like the idea was romantic. You make good money. It's not that much for you. I laughed. I didn't mean to. It jumped out of me like a hiccup. Ethan, we've been dating 4 months. I'm not paying your bills. His whole face shifted, color rising, charm dimming. Are you serious right now? Yeah, you made a unilateral decision to quit without a plan. That's your call, but I'm not funding it. I thought we were building something, he said, voice tightening. I thought you cared about me. I do care about you. Caring isn't the same as becoming financially responsible for you. It's temporary, he snapped, not forever. How temporary? A month? 6 months? A year? You just said you don't know. He stood, folding his arms like a barricade. This isn't about a timeline. It's about support. I need you to show up. Support doesn't mean I'm an ATM, I said softly. It means I cheer you on while you show up for yourself. He stared at me, then threw his line like a grenade. We're basically married. Wine caught in my throat. We're what? We've been together months. We stay at each other's places. We've met each other's friends. You're supposed to support your partner. We're not married, I said, keeping my voice even. We're not engaged. We haven't even had the exclusivity conversation. Oh, he shot back, eyes flaring. So you are seeing other people? That's not what I said. I said you can't quit your job and expect me to pay everything after 16 weeks of dating. That's insane. He grabbed his backpack, the performance sharp now. I can't believe how selfish you're being. I thought you actually gave a damn about my happiness. Your happiness isn't my financial responsibility, I said. Your choices are. He lingered at the door long enough to find a final line. We'll see about that. He left his half-eaten pasta on the counter and the smell of butter behind like a bad alibi. For 20 minutes, I stared at the door and tried to breathe past the absurdity. 4 months, 16 weeks. We hadn't once discussed money, budgets, or what partnership meant, and somehow I'd been cast as a patron with benefits. The next morning, my phone dinged while I brushed my teeth. Venmo. Request. $2,800 from Ethan Hale. Note. April expenses. Thanks, babe. I stared at it, mint cooling my tongue. Decline. 2 minutes later, my screen lit up. Why did you decline? Hello? I need this money. My rent is due in 3 days. I typed slowly. I'm not paying your bills. We talked about this. So you're going to let me be homeless? My landlord already sent a notice. Get a job. Starbucks, Target, restaurant, anything. Bridge work. There was a long pause. Then, those jobs are beneath me. I have a bachelor's. The toothpaste tasted suddenly bitter. Your degree doesn't pay your rent. A paycheck does. He called. I let it ring. He called again. again. 17 times by the time I hit Do Not Disturb. The texts kept coming, grasping for whatever lever might move me. You're abandoning me when I need you most. My mom was right about you. You said you cared. I muted the thread, set the phone on the counter, and stood very still in a kitchen that finally made sense again. Caring and underwriting were not the same thing. Boundaries and cruelty were not the same thing. Love and leverage were not the same thing. By lunch, a new notification arrived. Different tactic, same entitlement. Maya, his best friend. He's really going through it. Can you please just help him out? I closed my eyes. The orchestra had its instruments out now. I typed back. He quit without a plan. That's not my emergency. The 3 dots blinked, went dark. That night, I changed my Venmo privacy, saved screenshots to a new folder titled Evidence, and told myself the truth out loud in my living room where no one else could hear it. This isn't love, it's a bill. The doorbell didn't ring. Not yet. But the suitcase was coming. On Friday, the doorbell didn't ring. My phone did. I'm sorry I got upset. It was sudden. Can we talk? Ethan. Against my better judgment, I called. I tried to keep my voice gentle, like guiding a skittish animal off a road. Look, I said, I get hating your job, but quitting without a plan and expecting me to cover your bills isn't realistic. I'm not asking forever, he said, just until I'm back on my feet. How long is until? I don't know, he admitted. That's why I need time to figure it out. Then get any job while you figure it out. Something to bridge the gap. Silence stretched, then snapped. Those jobs are beneath me, Naomi. I have a bachelor's. Your degree isn't a debit card, I said softly. Paychecks are. He hung up. For the rest of the day, my phone was a fireworks show I didn't look up to watch. I actually started to believe the line had held, until Sunday evening, when I turned onto my block and saw a shape on the curb with a suitcase like a prop that had been waiting for its cue. Ethan looked up, eyes raw. He'd chosen the perfect hour. Gold light, neighbors walking dogs, witnesses pre-installed. My roommate kicked me out, he said, standing too fast. If I can't pay May rent, I need to leave, so I'm here. You can't stay here, I said. Where am I supposed to go? He demanded, voice already fraying. My mom's in Arizona. My friends are busy. You're my girlfriend. You're supposed to help me. I'm not your girlfriend anymore, I said. It felt like stepping off a ledge I'd been towing for weeks. We're done. He stared, astonished, like I'd broken a rule, he wrote. You're breaking up with me because I need help? I'm breaking up with you because you made a huge financial decision expecting me to bail you out, and now you're at my door with luggage after 16 weeks of dating. This isn't normal. He tried tears, the messy, loud kind that make passers-by assign blame with their eyes. An older woman with a terrier glanced at me, disapproval deepening her crow's feet. Perfect. You have options, I said, calm, not unkind. You're refusing them because you want me to be your solution. Please, he sobbed, just a few nights until I figure something out. Here is where the better angels of my nature wrestled with my boundaries, and nostalgia shoved its foot in the door. I saw the boy who fixed my crooked cabinet, who brought me soup when I was sick, who sent good morning texts unprompted. I also saw the man who had sent a Venmo request like an invoice for our relationship. 3 days, I said, and the words tasted like I'd bitten a battery. You sleep on the couch. You spend those 3 days applying to jobs and making a plan. Then you leave. The tears dried almost instantly, like they'd been switched off. Thank you, baby, he said, relief warming his voice. I knew you still cared. It should have been my cue to rescind the offer, to recognize gratitude too quick to be real. I led him upstairs anyway. The first night, he turned my kitchen into a menu. I'm starving, he said, swiping through delivery like a slot machine. Let's do Thai. Pad see ew, wings, dumplings. Oh, and mango sticky rice. No, I said, you're broke. Make something from the pantry. I have eggs, pasta, rice. He blinked at me, like I'd suggested chewing drywall. He made ramen with the posture of a prince learning peasantry, and ate it with the slow martyrdom of a saint. Monday morning, I left for work early. I set my expectations in a text I read twice before hitting send. Job applications today, serious ones. Email me the list you apply to. Company, role, date. We'll review tonight. At 6:07 p.m., I walked into my apartment and found him on my couch, wearing my favorite hoodie, eating my expensive chips, Netflix asking if he was still watching because it was worried. How'd the job hunt go? I asked. Good, he said, lifting his chin. I applied to a bunch of places. Which ones? Just marketing coordinator roles, similar to what I was doing. Show me. He scoffed, like I'd just asked to audit his soul. Why do I have to prove it to you? Because you're staying here for free, I said evenly. Show me. He pulled his laptop out in slow motion, like the time it took might birth honesty. He opened it to a tab bouquet of Netflix and Instagram, not a single career site in sight. You didn't apply to anything, I said. I was doing research first, he snapped. I need to make sure the companies align with my values. Pack your things, I said, my voice very calm. You're leaving. What? It's almost 7. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem, I said. The deal was 3 days of actual effort. You spent it on my couch lying to me. He tried tears again. This time, I let the silence absorb them. When it didn't work, he moved slowly, stuffing clothes into his bag, one item at a time, pausing after each like he was waiting for me to say fine, stay. I didn't. At the door, he turned with a last swing. You're really going to throw me out with nowhere to go? You threw yourself out when you quit without a plan, I said. Every choice that got you here was yours. I'll never forgive you for this, he hissed. Okay. I closed the door, locked it, relocked it, and leaned my forehead against wood that finally felt like a wall instead of a suggestion. Then I changed my Netflix password, checked my drawers, and sat on the edge of my bed while the apartment exhaled like a patient after surgery. An hour later, an unknown number buzzed. This is his mother. You should be ashamed. He loved you, and this is how you repay him? Blocked. 30 minutes after that, a Venmo notification. Request. $2,800 from Ethan Hale. Note. May expenses, rent, car, groceries. We're a team, remember? Decline. Then the texts, different numbers, new scorch marks. You destroyed my life. You abandoned me when I needed you. You owe me. 4 months is basically a marriage. Even common law recognizes that. I almost laughed. Common law requires years in cohabitation. We had neither. Facts slipped on the oil of his certainty. I screenshotted everything, dumped it into evidence, created subfolders, texts, Venmo, third-party messages, because the part of my brain that wrote code loved order, and the part that had dated chaos had learned the hard way that documentation is oxygen. The next morning at 7:42, my phone buzzed while I laced my sneakers. Hey, I'm Mia, Ethan's best friend. He's sleeping on my couch. He's trying. Could you spot him this month? He'll pay you back. I stared at the message, the updated cast list, the same plot. I typed, No, please don't contact me again. 3 dots pulsed, then stopped. The phone went quiet. By lunch, it woke up with a new tactic, credibility warfare. You led me on and abandoned me. You said you cared. You promised you'd support me. Ethan. I never promised anything, I wrote. Stop contacting me. I'm coming to talk. You owe me a face-to-face. There it was, the entitlement that couldn't conceive of a locked door as anything but a challenge. My stomach clenched. I forwarded the thread to my work email, then to a new contact labeled Attorney, TBD. I didn't have yet. The subject line read, If this escalates. At 6:19 p.m., I stepped out of the elevator and saw him in the lobby, arguing with my doorman like a man who believed volume was a keycard. She lives here, he insisted. I live here. You're not on the lease, my doorman said, looking at me with the kind of professionalism that says, say the word. Sir, you need to leave. I didn't look at Ethan. Please don't let him up, I told the doorman. If he refuses to leave, call the police. Ethan rounded on me. You can't do this. We're basically... Don't say married, I said quietly. You cheapened the word enough. He stared at me, the fury hollowing his face. Then he walked out into the evening without looking back. Upstairs, I filed my first official building trespass form and asked management to add his name to the list. The property manager nodded like this was not her first opera of entitlement. That'll bar him from common areas, she said. If he shows again, we call it in. Thank you, I said, and my voice surprised me, steady, not shaking. That night, I slept for 3 hours and dreamed of floodgates. In the morning, I woke to a new notification, an envelope icon instead of a heart. Email to hr@mycompany.com. From Ethan Hale. Subject, hostile environment. Financial abuse by employee. The body was a tangle of accusations, that I'd promised to support him and then withdrawn, that this constituted economic abuse, that as a woman in tech, I was weaponizing privilege. He CC'd a generic complaints inbox like he was throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping policy would stick. My boss called me into his office that afternoon. He shut the door and let out a weary laugh. "Do you want to tell me," he said, "why a man who doesn't work here wants us to fire you for not funding his sabbatical?" I handed him my compiled packet, the Venmo requests, the texts, the couch agreement turned farce, last night's lobby incident. He read, eyebrows climbing, then slid the pages back like they were warm. "This is outside of work," he said. "We'll reply accordingly, but document everything. And if you feel unsafe, we'll loop security." "I already am," I said. Documenting, loopings, locking, learning. That evening, the final tap in the pattern arrived. A long email from his mother titled, "You should be ashamed," accusing me of ruining a good man, of using her son, of withholding funds you promised, of emotional damages. I forwarded it to an attorney referral a friend texted and asked for a cease and desist. 3 hours and $300 later, a letter went out certified, cease and desist, harassment and defamation. No further contact. Any further action will result in pursuing civil remedies and a restraining order. The messages stopped for exactly 4 days. On the 5th, Venmo dinged again. Request: $8,400 from Ethan Hale. Note: back pay, 3 months, for emotional labor, housing support, meals you promised. I stared at the number, the way he had monetized even my silence. Decline, screenshot, folder. I placed my phone face down and watched the evening light move across the wall in a square that reminded me that time still existed outside of this. 3 months ago, I would have thought this was the climax. Now I understood. This was just the middle. People who believe you owe them don't accept receipts. They issue invoices. My door was locked, my folder was labeled, my patience was finished. And somewhere between my couch and the glowing rectangle of my phone, I heard the faintest sound of the next move assembling. The knock that wasn't a doorbell, the badge that wasn't a threat. I didn't know yet that the word unfounded would feel like a lullaby. But I suspected the storm hadn't left. It had gone to get paperwork. The knock came 3 evenings later, steady and official. When I opened the door, 2 uniformed officers stood there. "Ma'am," the older one said, checking a clipboard, "we received a report from an Ethan Hale. He claims you illegally evicted him and stole property worth approximately $300. For a moment, I just blinked, caught between disbelief and the weird calm that comes when your worst suspicions finally introduce themselves. "Come in," I said. "I can prove none of that happened." They walked through every room, checked closets, drawers, the balcony, like ghosts taking inventory. Nothing missing, because nothing had ever belonged to him. "He also mentioned a financial promise," the younger one said gently, "that you agreed to support him." I opened my laptop and pulled up the messages, the Venmo requests, the decline receipts, the texts where I said no, a word he had apparently never learned to hear. The older officer sighed. "Yeah, that's not a crime. You don't owe him money for ending a relationship." He scribbled something on his pad. "We'll mark this as unfounded. Keep documenting. If he tries this again, consider a restraining order." "Already working on it," I said. After they left, I sat on the edge of my couch, the same one he'd sprawled across, pretending to job hunt, and realized that exhaustion had evolved into strategy. He wasn't confused. He was calculating. 2 days later, my doorman called while I was still at work. "Naomi, he's here," he said, voice low. "Says he lives in your unit." I felt my pulse spike. "He doesn't. Do not let him up." "He's getting aggressive," he warned. "Should I call the cops?" Yes. By the time I got home, they'd already escorted him out. The security footage showed him shouting in the lobby, trying to shove past the desk. I filed a trespass notice first thing the next morning. The property manager added his photo to the building's internal alert system. "Anytime he shows up," she told me, "we'll call it in immediately." It should have ended there. But people like Ethan don't stop when you close the door. They find new ones to rattle. That Thursday, my boss called me into his office. He looked uneasy. "So, I got an interesting email." My stomach sank. "From him?" "From an anonymous account claiming you financially manipulated a partner and created a hostile environment for men." He gave a small, incredulous laugh. "Pretty sure I know who it's about, but want to fill me in?" I handed him the same digital folder I'd shown the police. The Venmo screenshots, the texts, the trespass notice, the police report number, the pattern. When he finished scrolling, he exhaled slowly. "Good grief," he said. "You dated him for 4 months?" 4, I said. It felt like dog years. Don't worry, he said, standing. We're closing this immediately, but keep every message. If he's contacting your workplace, that's escalation. He paused, then added quietly, You're handling this better than most people would. I smiled a little. Documentation helps. He nodded. So does knowing who you're dealing with. That night, my phone lit up again. Blocked number, but the tone was unmistakable. You ruined my life. You turned everyone against me. You can't just walk away from this. You owe me for everything I did for you. I didn't reply. I didn't even open the messages. I just took screenshots, labeled them, and dragged them into evidence harassment. An hour later, an email pinged in from my attorney's office, the certified copy of the cease and desist letter. The last line read, Any further communication or defamatory action will result in immediate pursuit of a restraining order. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. For exactly 72 hours, it was quiet. Then came the Venmo notification. Request. $8,400 from Ethan Hale. Back pay for emotional labor, housing, and meals you promised. My jaw dropped. He'd literally priced my empathy. I declined, of course, and sent the screenshot to my lawyer. He replied within minutes. Do not respond. We'll include it in the restraining order petition. Ethan's next move came faster than anyone expected. He posted on Instagram a long caption under a black and white photo of him staring into the distance. When you give someone everything and they throw you away like trash. When you trust someone and they betray you. When love turns to cruelty. I'll never make that mistake again. The comments were split. Half his friends echoed the script. You deserve better, man. Stay strong, king. The other half, people who apparently knew more, cut sharper. You quit your job and demanded she pay your rent. That's not heartbreak, that's entitlement. Maybe try Indeed instead of Instagram. He deleted the post within an hour, but I had the screenshots. A few days later, he showed up at my usual coffee shop. I spotted him in the reflection of the pastry case before I even turned. He saw me too, and exploded. There she is, he shouted, the woman who ruined my life. The entire cafe went still. Cups froze midair. I set my coffee down and said quietly, I'm not talking to you, Ethan. You can't even face what you did, he barked. You promised to support me. I never promised anything, I said, steady as stone, and I'm not discussing this in public. The barista, a college kid who looked suddenly much older, stepped forward. Sir, you need to leave or we'll call the police. She emotionally abused me, Ethan yelled, gesturing wildly. She owes me money. Sir, the barista said, firmer now. Out. Ethan's eyes burned holes in me. Everyone here should know what kind of person you are. He stormed out, the bell on the door jangling violently behind him. I apologized to the barista. I'm so sorry. He shook his head. No need. You okay? Getting there. When I got home, I filed another police report, this time citing harassment and intimidation. The officer, a woman about my age, looked at the folder of evidence I'd built and nodded grimly. You need to get a restraining order, she said. Don't wait. He's escalating. I know, I admitted. Don't work on it, she said, her voice sharpening with compassion. Do it. That night, I called my lawyer and told him to start the paperwork. 3 weeks later, I found myself in a small courtroom, fluorescent lights buzzing above, my 2-inch binder of evidence open like armor in front of me. Ethan sat at the opposite table beside his mother, flipping through what looked like a scrapbook of printed text messages, the sweet, early ones from when we'd first met. He smirked at me like we were still playing. The judge called the case. When asked if he contested the order, Ethan stood and declared, Yes, Your Honor, because she's lying about everything. The judge looked at his paperwork, unimpressed. What documentation do you have? He gestured proudly to his binder. Proof she made promises. Look, texts where she said she cared about me. That's a commitment. The judge blinked once. Mr. Hale, that's called dating. Those are not legally binding financial agreements. He floundered. She knew I was quitting my job. I spoke up. Your Honor, I found out after he quit. I handed over the time-stamped texts. The judge flipped through them silently. Venmo screenshots, police reports, trespass orders, HR correspondence, even the cafe incident. When he looked up, his tone was final. Mr. Hale, he said, you quit your employment and expected your girlfriend of 4 months to financially support you. When she declined, you engaged in a clear pattern of harassment, false reports, workplace interference, trespassing, and public intimidation. This is textbook stalking behavior. The restraining order is granted for 1 year. No contact of any kind. Stay 100 yards away at all times. Ethan's mother gasped. He sank back into his chair. "This is so unfair," she muttered. "He's the victim here." The judge's eyes didn't move from his papers. "Ma'am, I strongly suggest you not give me reason to extend this order to include you." When it was over, I walked out into the hallway feeling lighter than I'd felt in months. My lawyer patted my shoulder. "You did everything right," he said. "This is done." I wanted to believe him. But part of me knew people like Ethan don't stop because the law tells them to. They stop when they find a new target. And 2 weeks later, my inbox proved me right. Message request on Instagram from a man I didn't know. "Hey, this might sound weird, but did you date a guy named Ethan Hale?" My pulse kicked up. "Yes. Why?" "I've been on 3 dates with him. Last night, he told me he's thinking about quitting his job to find his passion and asked if I'd be cool covering his bills while he figures things out. We've known each other 10 days. I took a screenshot of the restraining order and sent it to him. "Run now," he replied instantly. "Holy, thank you, I'm blocking him right now." He did. Ethan, predictably, switched to rage. 40 messages from different numbers calling us both monsters. I didn't reply to any, because for the first time I didn't need to. The law had a name for what he was. And so did I. 3 weeks after the restraining order, my life began to sound like itself again. The silence didn't feel like waiting anymore. It felt like healing. I'd almost started to believe peace would stay until my building's doorman called me one Thursday evening. "Naomi," he said quietly, "your ex is here again." My stomach turned to lead. He's not supposed to be within 100 yards. I know, I already called the police. By the time I came downstairs, the lobby was empty except for my doorman shaking his head. "He left before they showed up," he said. "But he'll be back. Guys like that always come back once to test it." I filed another report that night. My lawyer sent a follow-up motion for violation of the restraining order. The next morning, an officer called to confirm they were adding it to his record. "People like him usually escalate before they disappear," she said matter-of-factly. "You're doing everything right. Just stay alert." "Believe me," I said, "I'm alert." 2 weeks later, I ran into a woman at a bar, one of Ethan's old co-workers. She recognized me instantly. "Oh," she said, eyes wide, "you're the girl." "Which one?" I asked dryly. "The one from his story." "What story was that?" She hesitated. "He told everyone you were some toxic gold digger who ruined his career. We all thought he was exaggerating until we found out what happened with his previous manager." I frowned. "What previous manager?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Before you, he dated his boss at his last company. She gave him flexible hours, tried to help him find purpose, and then he just stopped showing up. Quit. Said he was burned out and expected her to support him until he figured it out. When she refused, he filed an HR complaint saying she'd exploited him. They transferred her to another office just to get rid of the mess." My jaw tightened. "So this is a pattern." "A long one," she said. "He targets people with stability, convinces them they're partners, not rescuers. Then he burns it all down and plays the victim." I stared into my drink. "He called me heartless for not paying his rent." She winced. "He called her heartless for not co-signing his car." We sat in silence for a long moment before she whispered, "You're lucky you got out early." "Yeah," I said, meaning it. Luck or lesson. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a message from a new number. "Hey, this is Brandon. Sorry if this is weird. I think I've been seeing the guy you dated, Ethan Hale." "Unfortunately, yes," I replied. "What happened?" "He told me he's quitting his job to find his passion and asked if I'd help cover expenses. Said we were basically partners already." I sighed, typing back. "You've known him how long?" 11 days. Block him. Immediately. And don't believe a word he says about his exes." He sent one final message. "Thank you. I thought I was crazy for feeling something was off." He made me feel guilty for hesitating. "That's his favorite trick," I wrote. "Guilt is cheaper than rent." He replied with a single emoji, a running man, and blocked Ethan that night. My lawyer later told me the police added Brandon's account to the harassment file. "Patterns like this matter," he said. "They show the court it isn't about heartbreak, it's about control." For the first time in months, I started sleeping through the night. I changed my routines. Different gym, new coffee shop, different subway car every morning. My building's front desk now had a printed photo of Ethan's face under the heading, "Do not allow entry." I thought I was safe enough to relax, until I got an email from an unknown address. Subject, "Do you ever regret it?" Body, "You could have had someone who loved you enough to need you. Now you'll die alone with your spreadsheets." I forwarded it straight to my lawyer and the police. They traced it to a public library terminal 3 blocks from my apartment. "Still within 100 yards, the officer said grimly. That's another violation. By the next morning, a warrant was issued. When they picked him up later that week, he still had the restraining order in his backpack. He told the officers he just wanted to apologize properly. After the arrest, things finally quieted. The judge extended the restraining order for another year. Ethan was ordered to attend counseling and pay court fees. His mother, who had once emailed me essays about my emotional cruelty, sent a single-line message through my lawyer. "We'll leave her alone." I didn't respond. Because that was the point. I wanted to be left alone. Months passed. Spring arrived. I started going to the park again, breathing air that didn't taste like vigilance. One morning, while grabbing coffee at a new cafe, a man in line ahead of me smiled. "You look familiar," he said. I almost flinched. Hopefully not in a bad way. He chuckled. "No, just you come here a lot?" "First time," I said, trying to make new habits. "Good ones, I hope." He introduced himself. Alex, an engineer from a nearby office. Polite, soft-spoken, normal. The kind of normal that felt like luxury. When he asked if I wanted to sit and talk, I hesitated for a heartbeat, then said yes. We talked about travel, music, the kind of quiet goals people don't post about. He didn't ask about my past. He didn't try to fill silences. He just listened. When he walked me out, he said, "You seem like someone who's learned a lot about boundaries." I smiled. "Hard way." "That's usually the only way," he said. That night, I went home, opened my journal, and wrote. Some people build storms because calm scares them. Some of us learn to stop handing them umbrellas. Then I closed the book and finally turned off my phone before bed. The world didn't end. It was just quiet. And this time, quiet meant peace, not danger.